Imagine walking into any room and instantly knowing who's being honest, who's hiding emotional pain, who quietly respects you, and who's simply pretending to be someone they're not. Imagine being able to understand human behavior, not through magic or guesswork, but through psychology and science. Every blink, every pause, every tiny movement tells a deeper story. And once you learn how to recognize those signals, people will never feel like a mystery again. In this audiobook, you'll uncover the hidden psychology behind body language, facial expressions, emotional energy, and silent behavioral patterns, including the signals people try their hardest to conceal. This is not about manipulation. It's about awareness. This is not about judging others. It's about developing deeper empathy through observation and understanding. Because when you truly learn how to read people, you gain more than knowledge. You build stronger connections. You influence with confidence. You protect yourself from deception. And you lead with a level of clarity that most people never achieve. Welcome to the science of reading people, where perception becomes your greatest advantage. Chapter 1. The Hidden Language of Human Behavior. The ability to read people does not begin with listening to their words. It begins with observing their behavior. Long before someone speaks, their body is already communicating. The way they enter a room, the way they stand, the position of their hands. Every movement sends a message. Human beings communicated through gestures and expressions long before spoken language ever existed. Even today, more than 60% of communication happens non-verbally. A small change in posture can reveal discomfort. A real smile reaches the eyes. A micro-expression, a brief emotional reaction that lasts less than a second, can expose true feelings even when someone tries to hide them. This silent language is used by FBI profilers, psychologists, and behavioral experts to detect danger, understand motives, and uncover hidden truths. An investigator studying a suspect doesn't only focus on what's being said. They pay attention to whether the person's behavior matches their words. Someone claiming to feel calm while nervously moving their fingers or avoiding eye contact may actually be revealing stress and anxiety instead of confidence. The skill of reading people is not something only professionals are born with. It can be learned and developed. The first step is understanding a person's baseline behavior. A baseline is the way someone naturally acts when they feel relaxed and emotionally comfortable. Once you understand their normal behavior, any sudden changes, like rapid blinking, shallow breathing, or crossed arms, can signal emotional tension or inner conflict. It doesn't automatically mean they are lying, but it does mean something inside them has shifted. Even something as simple as a handshake can reveal information. A strong handshake may suggest confidence or a desire for control, while a weak one can sometimes reflect insecurity or passiveness. Eye contact also carries meaning. Too little eye contact may show nervousness, insecurity, or possible deception. Too much eye contact, however, can come across as dominance or aggression. Context is everything. No single gesture should ever be judged on its own. Someone crossing their arms may feel defensive, or they may simply be cold. True mastery in reading people comes from recognizing patterns. Like a skilled chess player thinking several moves ahead, an observant person notices small shifts in posture, facial tension, energy, and vocal tone. One powerful example is mirroring. When two people feel connected or comfortable with each other, they naturally begin copying each other's body language without realizing it. This creates rapport. But when mirroring suddenly disappears, like when one person leans forward while the other pulls away, it can signal emotional distance or disagreement. Facial expressions are among the clearest forms of human communication. Psychologist Paul Ekman identified 7 universal emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each emotion creates specific facial patterns that appear across different cultures around the world, proving that emotional expression is deeply connected to human biology. A tightened brow, widened eyes, or a curled lip all communicate feelings instantly, even when people are not consciously aware of it. Reading people also requires listening beyond the words they use. Tone of voice, speaking speed, rhythm, pitch, and pauses all add emotional meaning to communication. Sometimes the way something is said reveals far more than the actual words themselves. A short pause before answering can sometimes reveal hesitation. A sudden rise in vocal pitch may point to nervousness, while giving excessive detail or over-explaining a story can occasionally signal fabrication. But once again, individual signs alone do not tell the full truth. What truly matters is the overall pattern of behavior. Behavioral leaks, those small, involuntary actions people display while trying to maintain control of their image, often expose what's happening beneath the surface. Someone may repeatedly clear their throat, touch their face, adjust their posture, or blink faster than usual. These signals are not automatic proof of deception, but they are indicators of internal stress and deserve closer attention. To truly master the art of reading people, you must also develop deep empathy. Understanding human behavior is not about criticizing or judging others. It's about awareness and emotional intelligence. The more you understand how emotions, past experiences, fears, and intentions shape behavior, the more accurately you'll be able to interpret what people silently communicate. The science of reading people is a blend of observation, psychology, and intuition strengthened through practice. It requires curiosity, patience, strong attention to detail, and the ability to truly listen, not only to spoken words, but also to pauses, silence, facial tension, and body movements. Every interaction becomes a lesson. Every conversation reveals something deeper. And every person you meet carries a story waiting to be understood. Chapter 2. Decoding the Face. Emotions that cannot hide. The human face is one of the most honest parts of the body. Words can be carefully chosen, filtered, or manipulated, but facial expressions often reveal emotions before the mind has time to hide them. In less than a second, tiny facial movements can expose feelings a person may not even fully realize themselves. These are known as micro-expressions, brief flashes of genuine emotion that happen automatically and are extremely difficult to control. A person may smile politely while a quick downward movement around the mouth quietly reveals sadness. They may verbally agree with you, yet their eyebrows tighten for a split second, exposing uncertainty or doubt. These moments, where spoken words conflict with facial behavior, are incredibly valuable for anyone learning how to read people accurately. To understand micro-expressions, you first need to recognize the 7 universal facial emotions scientifically observed across all cultures and languages. These emotions are happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each emotion activates a unique combination of facial muscles. True happiness is visible not only in the smile, but also in the eyes, which naturally tighten and wrinkle at the corners. Sadness often lifts the inner eyebrows upward and may cause subtle trembling in the lips. Fear widens the eyes and stretches the mouth horizontally. Anger lowers the eyebrows, tightens the jaw, and may flare the nostrils. Surprise lifts the eyebrows and opens the mouth. Disgust wrinkles the nose and raises the upper lip. Contempt usually appears as a slight one-sided smirk or lip raise. Training yourself to notice these expressions requires slowing down your observation and becoming more mentally present during conversations. Imagine watching people in slow motion. Notice their reaction when they hear unexpected news, the expression that appears for a split second when someone mentions a sensitive topic, or the tension that briefly crosses their face before they answer a difficult question. These fast, emotional flashes are often far more honest than prepared words or rehearsed responses. Another important signal is the eyebrow flash. When people see someone they genuinely like, trust, or feel excited about, they often raise their eyebrows very quickly for a split second. It's an unconscious social greeting, a silent signal of comfort, recognition, or attraction. On the other hand, tension around the eyes or a tightly clenched jaw can quietly reveal hidden frustration, stress, or suppressed anger. The eyes themselves offer some of the most powerful clues about a person's internal state. People often say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but in many ways, they are actually windows into the nervous system. When someone experiences attraction, excitement, fear, or stress, their pupils naturally expand. During moments of intense focus, suspicion, or hostility, the gaze may become narrow and fixed. Fast blinking can signal nervousness or anxiety, while prolonged staring may feel controlling, intimidating, or aggressive. Learning to recognize these subtle changes can give you a major advantage in conversations, negotiations, and social interactions. Imagine presenting an idea during a meeting while a coworker smiles and verbally agrees, yet their expression remains tight and emotionless around the eyes. That small micro-expression of skepticism or contempt may reveal silent disagreement, even when their words sound supportive. The face also reveals when someone has moved outside their emotional comfort zone. During stressful or uncomfortable moments, people often touch their face without realizing it, rubbing the nose, covering the mouth, touching the ears, or brushing their cheeks. These are known as self-soothing behaviors, automatic responses connected to the body's fight-or-flight system. The nervous system uses these small actions to calm internal stress. These face-touching habits are not automatic signs of dishonesty, but when combined with other behavioral clues during storytelling, questioning, or negotiation, they can become important warning signals worth paying attention to. To truly master the art of reading facial expressions, memorizing emotions alone is not enough. You must understand context, emotional intensity, timing, and whether the expression matches the person's words. Did someone genuinely look shocked when they heard unexpected news, or did the expression appear slightly too late, as if it had been performed? Timing often reveals authenticity. As your observation skills improve, you'll begin trusting your instincts more naturally. You'll sense when something feels wrong before your conscious mind fully understands why. This is your brain's pattern recognition system quietly working in the background. With practice, you'll start noticing tiny shifts in facial tension, eye movement, and emotional reactions that reveal fear, attraction, dishonesty, manipulation, excitement, or discomfort long before those emotions are spoken aloud. Reading faces is not simply about detecting lies. It's about gaining deeper understanding. It's about connecting with people on a more meaningful level and recognizing emotions they may struggle to express verbally. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent, socially aware, and highly perceptive. Once you know what to look for, the human face becomes like a map, where every blink, twitch, wrinkle, and expression points toward a deeper emotional truth. Chapter 3. Body Language. Chapter 3. Body Language. The Silent Messenger of the Mind. Long before a person says a single word, their body has already begun communicating. The way someone walks into a room, stands during a discussion, or shifts their weight while listening is never completely random. Every movement tells a story. Body language is one of the oldest and most honest forms of human communication, shaped by evolution and survival. Our ancestors survived by reading physical behavior. They learned to detect danger, trust, fear, confidence, and intention not through language, but through posture, movement, and expression. Even today, the human brain is naturally wired to respond to those signals, often without conscious awareness. Every gesture, whether intentional or automatic, sends a message. Open palms usually communicate honesty, openness, and safety. Crossed arms often suggest defensiveness, discomfort, or emotional resistance. Leaning forward usually signals attention, curiosity, and engagement in the conversation. Leaning backward, however, can communicate distance, superiority, boredom, or a lack of interest. The real secret is to avoid judging any single gesture on its own. One movement alone may mean very little, but when several signals appear together, the true message becomes easier to understand. For example, if someone crosses their arms, avoids eye contact, and leans away from you at the same time, that combination strongly suggests discomfort, disagreement, or emotional withdrawal. Posture is one of the clearest indicators of confidence and emotional state. People with confidence naturally stand upright, keep their shoulders back, and hold their heads high. Insecure or submissive individuals often make themselves appear smaller through hunched shoulders, lowered eyes, or closed body positioning. In social groups, confident people tend to occupy more space without realizing it. They stretch comfortably, lean back, and use broader gestures. This is a subconscious territorial behavior connected to status and self-assurance. Personal space also communicates powerful information. When someone enters another person's space, it may signal dominance, aggression, emotional closeness, or attraction, depending on the relationship and situation. Interestingly, the feet are often the most honest part of the body. Most people consciously control their facial expressions and hand movements, but they rarely pay attention to what their feet are doing. If someone's feet point toward the exit during a conversation, when someone feels interested and emotionally engaged, their feet naturally point toward the person they are focused on. Constant weight shifting or toe tapping can reveal impatience, anxiety, or nervous energy. Hand gestures also reveal a great deal about emotional state and personality. Open hand movements, especially with palms visible and facing upward, usually communicate honesty, openness, and confidence. Hands hidden behind the back, buried in pockets, or constantly fidgeting can indicate discomfort, insecurity, or emotional tension. One well-known power gesture is steepling, when a person places their fingertips together to form a triangle shape. This gesture is commonly seen in people who feel confident, authoritative, or in control of the situation. Touching or rubbing the neck is another important behavioral clue. It often acts as a self-soothing gesture connected to stress, uncertainty, or emotional pressure. Scratching the head may signal confusion or mental searching. Exposed wrists during conversation often reflect openness and comfort, while tightly clenched fists can reveal frustration, tension, or suppressed anger. Another powerful social behavior is mirroring. This happens when people subconsciously copy each other's posture, gestures, speaking rhythm, or movements. Mirroring is one of the strongest signs of emotional connection and rapport. When people genuinely like, trust, or relate to one another, their bodies naturally synchronize. It's the body's silent way of saying, "We are connected." But when mirroring suddenly stops, it can indicate emotional distance, disagreement, or discomfort entering the interaction. Another important concept is proxemics, the study of personal space and physical distance. While personal space varies between cultures, people generally keep around 18 to 24 inches of distance from strangers. Standing closer than normal may signal intimacy, familiarity, attraction, or dominance. Stepping backward, on the other hand, often reflects discomfort, caution, or emotional withdrawal. You should also learn to recognize pacifying behaviors, small actions people unconsciously use to calm themselves during stress, uncertainty, guilt, or anxiety. These behaviors include rubbing the hands together, adjusting jewelry, repeatedly fixing clothing, tapping objects, or touching items over. These subtle movements are the nervous system's attempt to restore emotional comfort during moments of internal tension. These behaviors help release internal stress and usually appear when a person feels anxious, uncertain, emotionally pressured, or uncomfortable with what they're saying. Sometimes they happen when someone is hiding information. Other times they simply reflect nervousness or inner conflict. The real skill in understanding body language is not just noticing gestures, but recognizing changes from a person's normal behavior. Every individual has a baseline, their natural way of acting when they feel relaxed and emotionally balanced. When that behavior suddenly shifts, even in subtle ways, it often reveals a change in emotion or thought. A person who is normally calm but suddenly begins fidgeting may be feeling nervous or uneasy. Someone who is usually expressive but becomes unusually stiff or quiet might be emotionally guarded or hiding something. These small behavioral changes are often where the deeper truth begins to appear. Context is always important. Crossing arms in a freezing room does not automatically mean someone feels defensive. Tapping a foot during a long meeting could simply mean boredom or impatience. But when these same behaviors appear during emotionally intense conversations or high-pressure situations, they become much more meaningful. Reading body language is not about jumping to conclusions or judging people too quickly. It's about building deeper awareness and emotional understanding. It teaches you to slow down, observe carefully, and pay attention to what people communicate without words. With enough practice, you'll begin walking into rooms and instantly sensing the emotional atmosphere around you before anyone even speaks. You'll start recognizing who feels uncomfortable, who is hiding anxiety, who holds confidence, and who is simply pretending. This ability is more than social power. It is emotional intelligence, empathy, awareness, and human understanding working together in real time. Chapter 4. The Voice Behind the Words. Decoding Vocal Cues. Words carry meaning, but the way those words are spoken often reveals even more than the message itself. Tone, pitch, rhythm, pace, and volume create an emotional layer beneath speech that can either support the spoken words or completely contradict them. To truly understand people, you must learn to listen beyond language itself. You must hear not only what someone says, but how they say it. This hidden layer of communication is known as paralanguage, and it plays a major role in emotional connection, persuasion, and even deception detection. Tone is the emotional color behind speech. It shapes the feeling of every sentence and reveals what a person is truly experiencing inside. A flat or emotionless tone may suggest boredom, emotional distance, or lack of interest. A warm and energetic tone often signals friendliness, excitement, or genuine engagement. For example, someone may calmly say, "I'm fine," but if their voice sounds tense, sharp, or emotionally strained, the tone reveals a completely different reality. Skilled observers notice these mismatches between words and emotion. They pay attention to the feeling hidden beneath the sentence. Pitch refers to how high or low a person's voice sounds. During stress or nervousness, the vocal cords tighten, causing the pitch to rise. This is why anxious or deceptive people often sound more strained or higher pitched than usual. Sudden changes in pitch, especially during important parts of a conversation, can reveal emotional spikes connected to fear, anxiety, or pressure. Lower and steady vocal tones are usually associated with confidence, calmness, and trustworthiness. However, when someone artificially forces their voice to sound deeper or overly controlled, it can sometimes feel manipulative or unnatural. The speed of speech also provides valuable insight into emotional state. People who talk very quickly may be excited, anxious, overwhelmed, or trying to move past a sensitive topic too fast. Those who suddenly slow down may be carefully choosing their words or trying to avoid revealing too much information. Fast speech overloaded with unnecessary details can sometimes indicate nervousness or even deception, especially when it feels like the speaker is trying too hard to convince instead of simply communicating naturally. Volume is another powerful clue. People naturally raise their voices when they become emotional, defensive, angry, passionate, or excited. A sudden decrease in volume can sometimes reveal shame, sadness, uncertainty, or secrecy. When someone lowers their voice or begins whispering during a normal conversation, it may suggest they are discussing something emotionally sensitive or something they do not want openly noticed. On the other hand, people who constantly speak louder than necessary may be attempting to project authority, dominate the interaction, or cover hidden insecurity. Those who consistently speak too softly may fear confrontation, lack confidence, or feel emotionally withdrawn. The rhythm of speech and the timing of pauses often reveal hidden emotional truth. A calm and intentional pause can communicate confidence, control, and certainty, adding weight to the words that follow. But hesitation in the wrong moment, especially after a direct question, may signal uncertainty or mental pressure. When someone pauses before answering a simple question or repeats the question out loud before responding, they may be buying time to organize their thoughts or create a believable answer. Pay attention to speech fillers as well. Words and phrases like you know, like, or I mean. These are normal parts of casual conversation, but when they suddenly increase during certain topics or questions, they can reflect nervousness, emotional discomfort, or possible deception. The harder someone tries to appear natural while hiding something, the more uneven and disrupted their verbal flow often becomes. The human brain struggles to manage multiple mental tasks during deception. A person must create the false story, hide the truth, monitor your reaction, and maintain emotional control all at the same time. This mental overload frequently creates vocal leakage, subtle cracks in speech that reveal internal tension. Another important clue is throat clearing or changes in vocal stability. During stressful moments, anxiety causes the vocal cords to tighten while reducing moisture in the throat. This is why people often cough, swallow repeatedly, or clear their throat unconsciously when they feel pressure or fear. It is usually a physical stress response, not simply a random habit. A skilled observer also notices how people change their voice depending on who they are speaking to. Does someone sound respectful and polite in public but harsh and controlling in private? Do they soften their voice around authority figures but become aggressive toward those they consider weaker? These vocal shifts reveal deeper truths about self-image, ego, insecurity, and social hierarchy. Speech patterns can also expose dominance or submission. Dominant personalities often interrupt others, speak for longer periods, and use direct, commanding tones. More submissive individuals may soften their statements with phrases like maybe, I think, or kind of, turning firm opinions into uncertain suggestions. Even overusing the phrase, I'm sorry, may not always reflect genuine guilt. Sometimes it reveals a learned habit of avoiding conflict or constantly seeking approval from others. When analyzing vocal cues, context is everything. Ask yourself whether the emotion in the voice truly fits the situation. Does the excitement sound authentic or exaggerated? Does the sadness match the story being told? Is the laughter natural or forced? These moments of alignment or contradiction often reveal the difference between authenticity and performance. The voice is deeply connected to the emotional centers of the brain. You are not only hearing words, you are hearing fear, excitement, insecurity, anger, joy, grief, confidence, and doubt. As you train yourself to listen more carefully, you begin developing a form of emotional awareness that allows you to sense what people feel through the emotional texture of their voice. Reading people through vocal behavior is not about becoming suspicious or trying to trap others in lies. It is about becoming more emotionally tuned in. It means listening not only with your ears, but with complete attention, awareness, and sensitivity. Whether you are in a business negotiation, a date, a job interview, or a conversation with family, understanding vocal cues gives you a powerful advantage, not to manipulate people, but to understand them on a far deeper level. Chapter 5. Spotting Lies. The Psychology of Deception. Deception is as old as human communication itself. People lie for many different reasons. To protect themselves, gain an advantage, avoid punishment, preserve their image, or escape uncomfortable consequences. But no matter how carefully a lie is created, the human body often struggles to fully cooperate with the story being told. Understanding the psychology of deception begins with recognizing one important truth. Lying creates internal conflict. When someone says something they know is false, the mind experiences cognitive dissonance, a psychological tension between reality and fabrication. And whenever stress is created inside the mind, the body almost always leaves clues behind. Contrary to what many people believe, liars are not always nervous, restless, or unable to maintain eye contact. In reality, experienced liars often try too hard to appear believable. They may hold steady eye contact longer than normal, speak in a calm and controlled tone, and limit their... This is exactly why understanding a person's baseline behavior is so important. Before detecting deception, you must first understand how someone naturally behaves when they are honest and emotionally relaxed. Even a small shift away from their normal behavior can reveal that something is wrong. One of the strongest indicators of deception is a mismatch between verbal communication and body language. A person may confidently say, "I'm completely sure about that decision," while their posture tightens, their hands shake slightly, or their eyes repeatedly shift away. These contradictions are known as behavioral leakage, moments where the body unintentionally reveals emotions the mind is trying to hide. Lying places enormous pressure on the brain. The mind must invent a believable story, suppress the real truth, monitor physical behavior, and study the other person's reaction all at the same time. That mental overload often creates subtle mistakes and unconscious signals. Timing is another powerful clue. Honest answers usually come naturally because they are connected to real memories. Deceptive answers often involve slight delays, while the brain quickly builds a convincing version of events. If someone repeats your question before answering or pauses longer than usual after something simple, they may be buying time to create a believable response. Liars also tend to distance themselves from the lie through language. Instead of saying, "I didn't take the money," they may say something like, "The money was not taken by me." This type of distancing language subconsciously removes personal ownership from the statement. They may also speak in an unusually formal or overly controlled way because they are trying too hard to sound believable and trustworthy. Another common sign is excessive detail. Truth is usually direct and simple, while lies often become overly complicated. People who are lying may add unnecessary information, long explanations, or dramatic details in an attempt to sound convincing. But these extra details can feel rehearsed, unnatural, or emotionally disconnected. When someone gives a long and complicated answer to a very simple question, it can sometimes signal that they are hiding something beneath the surface. Changes in the voice are another important clue. Stress and anxiety can raise vocal pitch, making the voice sound tighter or strained. Emotional pressure may cause the voice to crack unexpectedly. A deceptive person's tone often shifts awkwardly as they try to appear calm, while their nervous system struggles underneath. Hesitations, speech fillers like or repeated swallowing, and throat clearing are also common during stressful moments of deception. These are physical signs of internal pressure affecting verbal communication. The hands can reveal even more. Honest people usually use relaxed and natural gestures that flow smoothly with their speech. Deceptive individuals may become unusually stiff because they fear giving themselves away. Others may display nervous hand behaviors, such as rubbing their fingers together, wringing their hands, touching their face repeatedly, or hiding their hands behind objects. Hand-to-face movements, especially touching the nose, mouth, neck, or chin, are classic signs of emotional discomfort and anxiety, often linked to stress during deception. Facial expressions can also expose hidden truth. A fake smile usually affects only the mouth and lacks the natural crinkling around the eyes that comes with genuine emotion. Sometimes a quick smirk appears before or after a lie, especially when someone secretly believes they are successfully fooling the other person. Micro-expressions are especially revealing. These brief flashes of genuine emotion happen so quickly that most people never consciously notice them. Someone might calmly say, "I'm not upset," while a split-second expression of anger flashes across their face before disappearing. These tiny emotional leaks often reveal what words are trying to hide. People who are being deceptive often mirror others less naturally. When two people genuinely connect, they unconsciously copy each other's posture, gestures, and energy. But someone hiding the truth may slowly pull away from that natural synchronization. They might stop mirroring entirely, lean backward, cross their arms, or angle their body away from the conversation. These subtle actions can reflect psychological distancing and emotional withdrawal. Another common sign appears in the way some people overemphasize honesty. Phrases like "honestly," "to tell you the truth," or "I swear to God," can sometimes act as warning signals. Genuine truth usually does not need dramatic reinforcement. When someone constantly tries to convince others that they are honest, it may reveal inner uncertainty or emotional pressure beneath the surface. One of the strongest indicators of deception is incongruence, when a person's tone, facial expression, posture, and words fail to align with each other. Someone may claim to feel calm while their body displays obvious tension and discomfort. These mismatched signals often create an instinctive feeling in observers that something feels off, even if they cannot immediately explain why. Still, it is extremely important to understand that no single behavior proves It is extremely important to understand that no single behavior proves someone is lying. Every clue must be analyzed within context and compared against the person's normal baseline behavior. A nervous person is not automatically dishonest. An introverted individual may avoid eye contact even while speaking truthfully. Cultural differences also influence posture, gestures, emotional expression, and communication style. To become skilled at spotting deception, you must learn to observe without emotional bias. Avoid rushing to accusations or personal assumptions. Instead, stay calm, neutral, and attentive. Ask similar questions in different ways. Pay attention to inconsistencies in the story. Listen more than you speak. Leave moments of silence during conversations, because deceptive people often feel uncomfortable with silence and rush to fill it. Honest people usually stay consistent with their story over time. Liars, however, often adjust details whenever necessary to protect the false narrative. In high-pressure environments, such as interrogations or criminal investigations, professionals sometimes use a method called cognitive interviewing. In this approach, a person may be asked to retell events backward or describe details using different senses and perspectives. This increases mental strain, making it much harder for deceptive individuals to maintain a fabricated story without slipping. In everyday life, learning to recognize deception can help protect you from manipulation, dishonesty, scams, and emotional harm. But beyond protection, it also deepens your understanding of human behavior. Once you recognize the emotional stress that deception creates and the signals it leaves behind, you naturally become more aware, more emotionally intelligent, and more connected to the truth yourself. Chapter 6. Personality Patterns. Understanding the core of human behavior. Every person carries a unique psychological blueprint, a combination of habits, emotional tendencies, motivations, and behavioral patterns that shape the way they think, feel, and interact with the world. To truly understand people, you must look beyond temporary emotions and focus on the deeper patterns driving their behavior. Body language, facial expressions, and vocal tone reveal what someone is feeling in the moment. Personality, however, explains why they consistently behave the way they do. Without understanding personality, the science of reading people remains incomplete. At the center of human behavior lies predictability. Once you understand what motivates someone internally, their actions become far easier to anticipate. Some individuals avoid conflict whenever possible, while others naturally move toward dominance and control. Some constantly seek validation and approval from others, while some prefer independence, privacy, and solitude. These behavioral patterns tend to repeat across relationships, workplaces, and everyday situations. Your role as an observer is to recognize these patterns over time. One of the most widely respected systems for understanding personality is the Big 5 personality traits model. This framework identifies 5 major personality dimensions that influence human behavior: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Together, these traits create a powerful foundation for understanding how different people think, react, communicate, and make decisions. Openness reflects a person's creativity, imagination, curiosity, and willingness to explore new ideas and experiences. Individuals who score high in openness are usually curious thinkers who enjoy learning, exploring possibilities, and discussing deeper or abstract topics. They may dress in unique ways, enjoy artistic expression, or naturally gravitate toward philosophical conversations. People with lower openness often prefer familiarity, routine, structure, and practical thinking. They usually feel more comfortable with clear facts, traditions, and predictable environments. Conscientiousness reveals how disciplined, organized, and responsible someone is. Highly conscientious people often appear punctual, reliable, prepared, and focused. Their speech tends to be structured, and their appearance is usually neat and intentional. These individuals often plan ahead, follow rules carefully, and take commitments seriously. Lower conscientiousness may show up through disorganization, impulsive decisions, missed deadlines, scattered thinking, or acting without much preparation. Extroversion reflects where a person directs their energy, outward toward people and stimulation, or inward toward reflection and solitude. Highly extroverted individuals are often energetic, expressive, socially confident, and comfortable leading conversations. They usually maintain strong eye contact, speak with animated gestures, and enjoy social interaction. Introverted individuals, on the other hand, may speak more softly, prefer smaller social circles, and take more time before responding. This does not mean they are shy. More often, it means they are thoughtful, selective, and internally focused. Agreeableness is connected to empathy, kindness, warmth, and cooperation. Highly agreeable people often smile frequently, listen carefully, nod during conversations, and try to maintain harmony in relationships. They may avoid conflict even when they strongly disagree internally. Lower agreeableness often appears as bluntness, skepticism, competitiveness, or a more confrontational communication style. These people are not necessarily unfriendly. They simply value honesty and directness more than social harmony. Neuroticism relates to emotional sensitivity and emotional stability. People high in neuroticism tend to experience stress, anxiety, mood swings, or emotional overthinking more intensely. They may apologize excessively, appear tense during conversations, or struggle to hide emotional discomfort. Individuals low in neuroticism usually remain calm under pressure, maintain steady speech, and regulate their emotions effectively even during stressful situations. Beyond the Big Five model, psychology also identifies broader personality archetypes that help explain human behavior. One well-known framework is the DISC personality model. Dominant personalities are direct, assertive, competitive, and focused on results. Influential personalities are social, enthusiastic, energetic, and emotionally expressive. Steady personalities are calm, loyal, dependable, and supportive. Compliant personalities are analytical, detail-oriented, cautious, and highly focused on accuracy. You can often identify these personality patterns by observing how people react to pressure, make decisions, communicate in groups, or respond to authority. A dominant personality often naturally takes control during discussions, interrupts frequently, and speaks with certainty and authority. Influential personalities rely heavily on storytelling, humor, emotional expression, and energetic body language to connect with others. Steady personalities usually avoid conflict, offer support quietly, and prefer emotional stability and predictability. Compliant personalities tend to ask detailed questions, carefully analyze information, and remain skeptical until they fully understand the facts. The secret to understanding personality is observing behavior consistently over time. Anyone can appear kind during one conversation or emotionally distant after a difficult day, but long-term patterns eventually reveal the deeper truth about who a person really is. Pay attention to how someone behaves across different situations, at work, with family, in public settings, or under pressure. Do they dramatically change their personality depending on who they are around? Or do they remain emotionally consistent? Consistency often reveals authentic personality far more accurately than temporary emotions. Another important layer of human behavior involves attachment styles, which strongly influence relationships and emotional connection. People with secure attachment usually display relaxed body language, comfortable eye contact, emotional openness, and healthy communication habits. Anxious attachment styles may appear through clinginess. Emotional overexpression, overthinking, or constant sensitivity to rejection. Avoidant individuals often seem emotionally distant, detached, guarded, or uncomfortable with vulnerability and emotional closeness. These attachment styles usually develop early in life and continue shaping communication patterns, emotional reactions, trust, and relationship behavior well into adulthood. Personality traits also strongly influence the way people deal with conflict. Some people move directly toward confrontation, while others avoid it completely. Some focus on solving the problem, while others focus on winning the argument. The way a person listens, argues, reacts emotionally, or defends their actions can reveal a great deal about their deeper personality structure. You can also learn a lot about someone by observing how they respond to change. Do they welcome it, resist it, or become anxious because of it? People who adapt easily to change often show emotional flexibility, confidence, and openness. Those who strongly resist change are not necessarily weak or negative, but they may have a higher need for control, predictability, or emotional safety. Understanding personality is not about labeling people or forcing them into rigid categories. It is about recognizing patterns and tendencies. The more carefully you observe someone over time, the more accurately you begin predicting how they will react in different situations. This understanding gives you a powerful advantage in communication, leadership, relationships, negotiation, and persuasion. You begin learning how to speak in ways that connect with different personalities, how to appeal to their motivations, and how to navigate their emotional fears and insecurities more effectively. Once you learn to recognize personality patterns, human behavior becomes far less confusing. You realize that people are surprisingly consistent, even in their contradictions. Emotional outbursts, passive-aggressive comments, avoidance, defensiveness, or constant approval-seeking often come from deeply rooted personality patterns formed over many years. And once you begin recognizing those patterns, you unlock a deeper level of clarity, influence, and emotional understanding. You stop reacting emotionally to every behavior and start anticipating it instead. You stop judging people based on a single moment and begin understanding them through the larger pattern of who they are over time. Chapter 7. Situational Awareness. Reading the room before reading the person. Before you can accurately understand an individual, you must first understand the environment around them. This is known as situational awareness, one of the most important principles in behavioral psychology, law enforcement, military intelligence, leadership, and social communication. Human behavior changes depending on the situation. People react differently based on where they are, who is around them, what emotional pressure exists, what power dynamics are present, and what they feel is at risk. To truly understand someone, you must first understand the environment influencing their behavior. Imagine watching the same person in 3 completely different settings: during a job interview, relaxing with close friends, and attending a funeral. Their posture, tone of voice, facial expressions, and energy level would likely be very different in each environment. This does not mean the person is fake or inconsistent. It simply means human beings naturally adapt their behavior to different social situations. Experienced people understand that behavior never exists in isolation. Human actions are fluid, reactive, and deeply shaped by context. Situational awareness begins with observing the environment itself. ask yourself important questions. Where does the power sit in this room? Who appears dominant? Who seems submissive? Who is seeking attention? And who is trying to stay unnoticed? These observations help you understand not only individuals, but also the social structure surrounding them. For example, imagine employees sitting stiffly during a corporate meeting immediately after the CEO enters the room. Their nervous body language may not reflect their natural personality at all. Instead, it may simply be a reaction to authority and pressure within the situation. In this case, the stress signals are situational rather than personal. The physical environment also changes behavior dramatically. In crowded or noisy spaces, people often become more closed off. They may cross their arms, avoid eye contact, or speak less, not because they are unfriendly, but because the environment feels overstimulating or mentally exhausting. Even physical positioning influences perception. A person sitting at the head of a table often appears more powerful or authoritative, not necessarily because of their personality, but because the position itself naturally communicates status and control. The environment silently influences posture, tone of voice, emotional expression, and social behavior, often without people even realizing it. This is why understanding context is essential when reading human behavior. Without context, it becomes very easy to misinterpret what you see. For example, someone constantly checking their phone during a conversation may not actually be bored or disrespectful. They could simply be waiting for an important message or urgent call. A person pacing nervously before giving a presentation is not automatically dishonest or weak. They may simply be dealing with anxiety related to public speaking. When context is ignored, normal human reactions can easily be misunderstood. Another important part of situational awareness is understanding group dynamics. People behave very differently in groups compared to when they are alone. In social groups, individuals often suppress emotions, seek approval, or adjust their behavior to fit the crowd. In private settings, people are usually more relaxed, authentic, and emotionally honest. Pay close attention to social behavior inside groups. Notice who naturally leads conversations, who quietly agrees, who interrupts frequently, and who stays silent. In many situations, silence communicates more than words. Also observe social alignment within the room. Watch who mirrors another person's posture, who physically turns their body toward someone, and who leans forward when a certain individual begins speaking. These subtle signals reveal respect, admiration, loyalty, and influence. If a person speaks, and nobody makes eye contact, reacts, or leans toward them, it may indicate low social influence within the group. But if multiple people unconsciously mirror their gestures or respond immediately when they speak, that person likely holds authority, trust, or emotional influence over others. Another powerful layer of situational awareness is the emotional atmosphere, the emotional temperature of the room itself. Is the environment tense, relaxed, awkward, bored, excited, or emotionally charged? You often do not need anyone to verbally explain it. You can sense it through posture, facial expressions, silence, energy, and movement. Observe whether people sit upright with alert expressions or slouch with exhausted eyes, and this emotional climate directly affects how individuals behave. A person who normally appears confident and expressive may suddenly seem tense or withdrawn simply because the environment feels hostile, cold, or uncomfortable. In high-pressure settings like negotiations, courtrooms, interviews, or corporate boardrooms, situational context becomes even more important. In these environments, people consciously manage impressions and carefully control behavior. They perform socially. They calculate reactions. They become highly aware of how others perceive them. This is why experienced observers do not only focus on visible behavior, they also ask themselves an important question. How would I behave if I were in this person's position? Empathy is one of the foundations of accurate observation. When you mentally place yourself into another person's situation, considering their responsibilities, fears, motivations, pressure, and audience, their behavior begins making much more sense. Even biological factors influence behavior. People are generally more mentally sharp, emotionally balanced, and socially patient earlier in the day. As fatigue, hunger, stress, or mental overload increase later on, irritation, impatience, emotional reactions, and shorter communication become more common. These shifts are often biological, not personal. Situational pressure also exposes authentic stress signals. When people feel watched, judged, challenged, or emotionally cornered, their real reactions begin to surface. This is when genuine micro-expressions, nervous body shifts, vocal tension, and emotional leakage become easier to observe. This is one reason interrogators, investigators, and behavioral experts sometimes intentionally create controlled discomfort during interviews. Stress tends to expose what comfort successfully hides. To strengthen your situational awareness, practice observing environments before focusing on specific individuals. Walk into a room and silently ask yourself questions like, where is the power centered here? What emotion dominates the environment? Who appears comfortable and who seems exposed? Who is performing socially and who appears genuine? What outside pressures may be shaping the behavior in this room? Only after understanding the environment should you focus closely on individual. This approach dramatically improves accuracy and helps prevent false assumptions. Human behavior almost always makes more sense when viewed within the context surrounding it. Remember, people are highly adaptive creatures. We constantly adjust ourselves to survive socially, gain acceptance, avoid rejection, and protect our emotional position within the group. People constantly adjust themselves based on the environment they are in and the people surrounding them. Once you master the ability to read situations, you stop blaming individuals for every reaction and begin recognizing the deeper forces influencing behavior. The world starts making more sense. Hidden motives become easier to spot, and your ability to connect, influence, and persuade grows dramatically, not because you control people, but because you understand the situation more clearly than anyone else around you. Chapter 8. Emotional Intelligence. Feeling what others cannot say. Reading people is not only about observing body language or decoding behavior. At its deepest level, it is about understanding emotion. True human insight comes from emotional intelligence, often called EQ, the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and respond to emotions in both yourself and others. Without emotional intelligence, even the most observant person becomes emotionally disconnected, analyzing people like cold data. But with strong EQ, you become more than an observer. You become someone who genuinely understands and connects with others on a human level. Everything begins with empathy, not sympathy or pity, but the ability to emotionally step into another person's world without immediately trying to fix them, judge them, or escape their emotions. Emotional intelligence means sensing sadness hidden behind a smile. It means hearing pain inside silence. It means recognizing that anger is often fear-wearing emotional armor. To truly understand other people emotionally, you must first understand yourself. If you are angry, exhausted, insecure, or emotionally distracted, your perception of others becomes distorted. Your emotions shape the lens through which you interpret behavior. This is why emotionally intelligent people regulate themselves before reacting or making assumptions about someone else. Whenever you meet someone, their emotional energy begins communicating long before words are spoken. Do they feel calm and grounded, or restless and anxious? Are their shoulders relaxed or carrying tension? Does their voice sound emotionally warm, empty, heavy, or guarded? These are emotional signals, and people with strong emotional intelligence notice them almost immediately. One of the most important EQ skills is learning to hear emotional subtext. Someone may quietly say, "I'm okay," while their voice trembles and their eyes avoid contact. The emotionally intelligent listener hears the emotion hidden beneath the sentence. People rarely express their deepest feelings directly during emotionally intense moments. Instead, they test the conversation carefully, hint at emotions indirectly, or hide truth behind humor and sarcasm. Emotional intelligence acts like emotional radar, detecting what others fail to notice. Another major sign of high EQ is emotional non-reactivity. When someone becomes defensive, angry, or emotionally difficult, low emotional intelligence usually responds by escalating the tension, arguing louder, becoming defensive, or emotionally shutting down. High EQ responds differently. It slows down, stays calm, and looks deeper beneath the reaction. Instead of reacting emotionally intelligent people ask themselves, what is this person truly feeling underneath this behavior? This calm emotional presence often reduces tension immediately and creates a feeling of trust and safety. Emotionally intelligent people also notice emotional shifts very quickly. Someone may walk into a room full of excitement and confidence, then suddenly become silent and emotionally heavy later on. EQ notices the change and gently pays attention to it. A simple observation like, "You seemed really happy earlier. Is everything okay?" can open emotional doors that most people completely miss. Another important part of emotional intelligence is recognizing emotional proportionality. Is the emotional reaction matching the situation itself? If someone explodes emotionally over something very small, the real issue is often much deeper than the moment itself. Emotionally intelligent people recognize layers beneath emotional reactions. A harmless joke that suddenly causes tears, a compliment that makes someone freeze emotionally, a small disagreement that triggers intense anger. These moments often reveal hidden insecurities, emotional wounds, stress, or unresolved experiences beneath the surface. In relationships, emotional intelligence becomes incredibly valuable. It allows people to comfort each other properly, validate emotions without judgment, and emotionally support one another in ways that strengthen trust and connection over time. A partner with strong emotional intelligence understands when someone needs comfort, when they need questions, and when they simply need quiet support without words. They notice the small emotional signals most people overlook: tiny eye movements, changes in breathing, shifts in posture, or the pressure of a hand squeeze that silently reveals a partner's emotional state. In leadership, emotional intelligence transforms authority into genuine influence. Emotionally intelligent leaders do not simply give commands or manage tasks. They pay attention to the emotional atmosphere surrounding their team. They notice when motivation drops, when tension starts building, or when someone becomes emotionally disconnected from the group. Instead of only reacting to visible problems, they look deeper and address the emotional causes underneath. This creates stronger trust, loyalty, teamwork, and emotional resilience. In social situations, emotional intelligence appears through emotional calibration and emotional mirroring. You naturally adjust your tone, energy, and communication style to better connect with the other person, not to manipulate them, but to create emotional understanding and comfort. For example, if someone is speaking softly and calmly while you respond with loud, aggressive energy, emotional friction immediately appears. People with high EQ recognize these mismatches and adjust naturally. This is one reason highly charismatic individuals often seem connected to everyone around them. They are emotionally flexible and socially aware. But emotional intelligence does not mean becoming emotionally overwhelmed by everything around you. It is not about absorbing emotions so deeply that you lose emotional control. True EQ is built on emotional regulation, the ability to feel emotions fully without suppressing them or emotionally exploding onto others. It means recognizing your irritation while still choosing to respond calmly. It means acknowledging sadness without collapsing under it. Emotional intelligence allows you to remain emotionally present without becoming emotionally consumed. To strengthen emotional intelligence, practice active listening. Stop interrupting. Stop preparing your response while the other person is speaking. Instead, focus completely on understanding them. Ask reflective questions that encourage emotional expression. Questions like, "How did that make you feel?" often create deeper connections than judgmental questions like, "Why did you do that?" Pay attention to emotional patterns. Observe how people react when they feel stressed, praised, challenged, embarrassed, ignored, or appreciated. Stay fully present during conversations. Put distractions away. Maintain natural eye contact. Give people your complete attention. Sometimes simple emotional validation like, "That sounds really frustrating," can provide far more comfort than dismissive reassurance like, "Don't worry about it." Emotionally intelligent people do not constantly rush. Emotionally intelligent people do not constantly rush to fix everyone's problems. Instead, they create emotional space where others feel safe enough to be honest about what they truly feel. They are not perfect people. They are simply present people. They understand that nearly everyone carries invisible emotional struggles, fears, insecurities, or pain beneath the surface. Because of this, they approach others with curiosity and compassion instead of quick assumptions and judgment. Reading emotions is not a weakness. It is one of the greatest forms of human strength. It allows you to connect through emotional barriers, calm conflict before it explodes, and understand people deeply enough that they no longer need to explain every feeling with words. It means recognizing when someone is hurting, even while they are smiling. When emotional intelligence becomes part of who you are, you stop merely reading people. You begin truly feeling and understanding them. You treat their emotions with awareness and respect. And because people sense that genuine understanding, they naturally begin trusting you, opening up to you, and feeling emotionally safe around you. Chapter 9. Intuition. Trusting the inner signal. Sometimes the body recognizes truth before the conscious mind can explain it. You walk into a room and instantly sense tension. You meet someone for the first time and immediately feel either uneasy or strangely comfortable around them. These moments are not supernatural or magical. They are intuition quietly working beneath conscious awareness. In the science of reading people, intuition acts as the bridge between experience, observation, and subconscious pattern recognition. Many people misunderstand intuition and assume it is random guessing or pure emotion. But genuine intuition is often the result of thousands of subtle observations your brain processes automatically and almost instantly. Your mind quietly notices facial tension, body language, tone shifts, emotional inconsistencies, energy changes, and environmental signals before your conscious thoughts fully catch up. That is why intuition often feels like instinct. Intuition is your mind recognizing familiar patterns before your conscious thoughts can fully explain them. Think about a skilled poker player who folds their cards before the final reveal, not because of statistics alone, but because they noticed a tiny facial twitch, a shaky hand, or a subtle change in breathing from the opponent. Or imagine a therapist who senses that a client is hiding something, not because of the words being spoken, but because the emotional energy in the room suddenly shifts. This is not magic. It is trained intuition built through experience, emotional awareness, observation, and repeated exposure to human behavior. To strengthen your own intuition, you must first learn how to quiet mental noise. Intuition struggles to be heard when the mind is overwhelmed by overthinking, distractions, stress, or emotional chaos. Intuition becomes strongest in moments of calm awareness. When your mind slows down, your sensitivity increases. You begin noticing things most people completely miss. Start paying closer attention to your natural gut reactions. The human body has a deep connection between emotion and physical sensation. In fact, the stomach contains an incredibly complex network of neurons, often referred to as the body's second brain. When something feels wrong, your body often reacts before your thoughts do. Your stomach tightens, your breathing changes, your chest feels heavy, your skin becomes tense. These reactions should not be ignored. They are often signals that your subconscious mind has detected something your conscious mind has not fully processed yet. This becomes especially important when reading people. You may meet someone who says all the correct words, smiles at the right moments, and appears completely confident, yet something inside you still feels uncomfortable whenever they speak. That feeling may come from subtle emotional inconsistencies your subconscious mind has already detected. A smile that feels emotionally empty, a rehearsed tone of voice, unnatural body alignment, or emotional energy that does not match the words being spoken. When words, behavior, and emotional energy fail to align, intuition often notices the conflict first. At the same time, intuition should never replace observation or logic completely. Intuition becomes more accurate when it is balanced with awareness and reflection. After social interactions, ask yourself important questions. What exactly did I feel during that conversation? At what moment did that feeling begin? What specific behavior or energy triggered it? Was my feeling accurate afterward? The more you reflect on these experiences, the sharper your internal awareness becomes. Over time, you begin separating true intuition from emotional bias. Bias usually comes from fear, insecurity, trauma, assumptions, or personal projection. Intuition comes from calm awareness, emotional presence, and honest perception. Bias rushes to judge. Intuition quietly senses. Another important part of intuition is energetic awareness. Every person carries a different emotional presence. Some people naturally feel warm, calming, and emotionally safe. Others may feel tense, cold, unpredictable, or emotionally draining. Often you can sense a person's energy before they even... You feel it the moment they enter a room. Highly intuitive people are not only observing visible behavior, they are also tuning into the emotional frequency underneath the surface. You can strengthen this ability through mindfulness, meditation, emotional self-awareness, and inner clarity. The calmer and more emotionally balanced you become internally, the more accurate your perceptions become externally. Inner chaos clouds perception. Inner clarity sharpens it. It is also valuable to pay attention to dreams, sudden realizations, and delayed insights. The subconscious mind continues processing information long after a conversation or interaction has ended. Sometimes you suddenly remember a strange detail hours later. Sometimes a feeling about someone becomes clearer during quiet reflection or even in dreams. These moments are often your subconscious mind organizing information beneath conscious awareness. Many successful leaders, negotiators, investigators, psychologists, and therapists rely heavily on intuition. They walk into environments and immediately sense tension, dishonesty, fear, or hidden conflict before anyone openly reveals it. Not because they possess supernatural abilities, but because they have trained themselves to become deeply aware of emotional patterns, human behavior, and environmental energy. Remember this carefully. Intuition is one of the quietest forms of intelligence. It does not scream for attention. It whispers gently. It does not force. It nudges. And the more you learn to trust and refine it, the sharper and more reliable it becomes. The more you ignore your intuition, the weaker and quieter it becomes over time. But in a world filled with distractions, performance, and hidden intentions, intuition remains one of your most trustworthy guides. When it comes to reading people, intuition fills the spaces that logic alone cannot explain. It warns you when someone feels dangerous even while smiling politely. It helps you recognize sincerity in people who speak very little. It protects you from manipulation, saves you from wasted time, and quietly guides you toward truth. At the core of strong intuition is self-trust. You must learn to trust your own perception and emotional awareness. When you deeply understand yourself, your ability to understand others becomes much clearer. You stop questioning every instinctive feeling. Instead, you learn to listen to it, refine it, and let it guide your understanding of people. And when that happens, you move through life doing more than simply observing human behavior. You begin truly understanding people beneath the surface. Chapter 10. Micro-expressions. The truth, hidden in a split second. Human beings naturally express emotions through the face, often without realizing it. Even before words are spoken, emotions appear in tiny flashes across facial muscles, quick reactions so brief that most people completely miss them. Yet these small expressions can reveal what a person truly feels inside, even when they are trying hard to hide it. These tiny emotional flashes are known as micro-expressions, and they are among the most reliable clues in understanding genuine human emotion. Learning to recognize micro-expressions is like learning to see the emotional truth hidden behind a social mask. A micro-expression is a brief, involuntary facial reaction that appears when someone consciously or unconsciously tries to suppress an emotion. These expressions usually last between 1/25th and 1/5 of a second, far too fast for an untrained observer to notice easily, but highly visible to someone who has trained their awareness. Micro-expressions are universal. They appear in every culture, language, and background because they are deeply connected to human biology. Psychologist Dr. Paul Ekman, one of the leading researchers in facial expression science, identified 7 universal emotions shared across humanity: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. Each emotion creates predictable movements in facial muscles, even when someone attempts to hide what they truly feel. Here is how these emotions commonly appear. 1. Happiness. Real happiness affects the entire face. Look closely for small wrinkles near the eyes, raised cheeks, and a natural narrowing of the eyes. Genuine smiles involve emotional engagement throughout the face. Fake smiles usually affect only the mouth. The lips may curve upward, while the eyes remain emotionally empty or tense. When the eyes fail to participate, the smile often lacks authenticity. 2. Sadness. Sadness usually pulls the inner eyebrows upward, while slightly lowering the corners of the mouth. The eyes may appear heavy or drooping, and overall facial movement often slows down. People experiencing sadness may also lower their gaze or avoid prolonged eye contact. 3. Anger. Anger creates visible tension across the face. The eyebrows lower and pull inward. The eyes narrow sharply, and the lips tighten or press together firmly. Even a quick flash of anger before someone regains emotional control can reveal hidden frustration or resentment beneath calm words. 4. Fear. Fear often appears first in the eyes. The eyebrows rise while pulling together. The upper eyelids lift, and the mouth may open slightly. The face appears alert and tense. Even a brief moment of widened eyes and facial tension can reveal feelings of danger, anxiety, or emotional threat. 5. Surprise. Surprise causes the eyebrows to rise suddenly, the eyes to widen, and the mouth to open naturally. Unlike fear, however, surprise usually lacks facial tension and disappears quickly. If someone exaggerates surprise for too long, it may feel unnatural. 6. Disgust. Disgust usually appears through a wrinkled nose, a raised upper lip, and slight tightening around the face. This reaction often happens automatically when someone encounters something offensive, unpleasant, or emotionally repulsive. Even if they try to stay polite, disgust can briefly flash across the face before disappearing. 7. Contempt. Contempt is one of the most revealing expressions because it often signals feelings of superiority, disrespect, or hidden resentment. It usually appears as a subtle, one-sided lift of the mouth, almost like a small smirk on one side of the face. Contempt is a deeply layered emotion, a mixture of superiority, disrespect, and dislike. Among all emotional expressions, contempt is one of the most dangerous in relationships, teamwork, and negotiations because it silently communicates judgment, rejection, and emotional dismissal. The real power of micro-expressions comes from the fact that they are almost impossible to fully control. A person may carefully rehearse their words, posture, and tone, but these tiny emotional flashes still reveal what is truly happening beneath the surface. This makes micro-expressions incredibly valuable during high-pressure conversations, interviews, interrogations, negotiations, sales situations, and personal relationships where people often hide their real emotions. Learning to detect micro-expressions requires patience and practice. You must train yourself to observe the entire face rather than focusing only on the eyes or mouth. Instead of staring intensely, keep your gaze relaxed and natural. Often, you will sense that something changed emotionally before your conscious mind fully understands what happened. A brief tightening around the jaw, a sudden flicker in the eyebrows, or a split second of tension across the face can reveal emotional truth leaking through control. Here are a few practical ways to strengthen your ability to read micro-expressions. Watch videos of conversations without sound, and try identifying emotions only through facial movement and body language before listening to the dialogue. Replay real conversations in your memory afterward and ask yourself what emotions you sensed during key moments. Practice facial expressions in front of a mirror yourself. When you physically create emotions on your own face, you become much better at recognizing them in others. You can also slow down video recordings frame by frame to study subtle facial changes that happen too quickly in real time. Micro-expressions often appear during emotionally intense moments, especially when someone feels challenged, accused, surprised, nervous, or dishonest. During these moments, facial reactions may directly contradict spoken words. For example, a person may calmly say, "I'm not upset," while a quick flash of anger appears across their face before they regain emotional control. That momentary contradiction can reveal what they are truly feeling underneath. But context always matters most. A micro-expression is not absolute proof of anything. It is a clue, not a final conclusion. Facial reactions should always be interpreted alongside tone of voice, posture, timing, emotional context, and the person's natural behavioral baseline. If someone briefly shows fear while discussing a business proposal, it does not automatically mean they are lying. They may simply feel uncertain, insecure, or emotionally pressured. The goal of reading micro-expressions is not judgment. It is a deeper understanding. Mastering this skill gives you an almost instinctive awareness during communication. You begin sensing emotions people try to hide. You become better at detecting dishonesty, recognizing vulnerability, and responding with greater empathy, emotional intelligence, and strategy. You become more intuitive, more emotionally aware, and more connected to reality beneath appearances. When you learn to notice the emotional flicker behind a smile, the tightened jaw during praise, or the brief sadness hidden inside someone's eyes, you are no longer simply observing people. You are connecting with their authentic emotional truth. Chapter 11. Spotting Manipulators. Detecting Hidden Agendas. In the complicated world of human interaction, not everyone operates with honesty or good intentions. Some people wear emotional masks not to protect vulnerability, but to manipulate, control, deceive, and gain advantage over others. These individuals are often highly skilled at creating false impressions, hiding motives, and influencing emotions to serve their own interests. Protecting yourself from manipulation does not require paranoia. It requires awareness, pattern recognition, emotional clarity, and careful observation. Manipulators are rarely obvious in the beginning. Most do not appear aggressive or openly threatening. In fact, many are extremely charming, charismatic, attentive, and socially skilled. They know exactly how to say what others want to hear. They understand emotional pressure points and slowly use them to gain influence and control. Their power comes from hiding their real intentions while exploiting emotional weaknesses in others. One of the earliest warning signs of manipulation is inconsistency. Manipulators frequently say one thing and do another. They make promises and fail to follow through. They change stories, shift opinions suddenly, deny previous statements, or behave differently depending on who is watching. This confusion is often intentional. By making reality feel unstable, manipulators gain psychological control. When you begin doubting your own memory, judgment, or perception, they position themselves as the authority defining what is true. Another common tactic is excessive flattery. Manipulators often use compliments strategically, not to genuinely appreciate you, but to lower your defenses. They create emotional closeness very quickly through praise, attention, validation, and admiration. Once emotional trust is established, they slowly begin taking advantage of it. If someone becomes emotionally intense too quickly, offers non-stop praise that feels unnatural, or seems overly invested in you before truly knowing you, pause and examine their intentions carefully. Another major red flag is guilt manipulation. Skilled manipulators are experts at using emotional pressure to control behavior. Manipulators often use emotionally loaded phrases like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Or, "If you really cared about me, you would do this." Statements like these are usually not honest expressions of pain. They are carefully designed emotional pressure tactics meant to make you feel guilty, responsible, or emotionally obligated. Instead of communicating openly, they use your compassion against you to influence your decisions and behavior. Another major manipulation tactic is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological control where someone repeatedly causes you to doubt your own memory, perception, or emotional reality. They may say things like, "I never said that," "You're imagining things," "You're too sensitive," "You always overreact," "You're the reason all these problems exist." Over time, constant gaslighting slowly weakens self-confidence and emotional stability. It creates confusion, self-doubt, and emotional dependence on the manipulator's version of reality. If you constantly find yourself questioning your memory, feelings, or judgment around someone, take that feeling seriously. It is often a major warning sign. Manipulators also commonly use triangulation. This happens when they involve another person to create pressure, jealousy, insecurity, or self-doubt. For example, they might say, "Everyone agrees with me. You're the only person who thinks this way. My ex never behaved like this. Even your friends think you're overreacting." This tactic isolates you emotionally and slowly pushes you into doubting your own perspective. It positions the manipulator as the reasonable person while making you appear irrational or emotionally unstable. In close relationships, manipulators often cycle between emotional idealization and emotional devaluation. At first, they may make you feel incredibly special. You are treated like the perfect person, the answer to all their problems, someone they deeply admire and appreciate. But once emotional control is established, the dynamic changes. Criticism slowly replaces admiration. Suddenly, you are too emotional, not good enough, too difficult, or too demanding. Then, when you begin pulling away emotionally, they temporarily switch back to affection, praise, attention, and emotional intensity just long enough to pull you back into the cycle. This emotional push and pull can become deeply addictive and emotionally damaging over time. Manipulators also avoid accountability whenever possible. Instead of taking responsibility for harmful behavior, they deflect blame, create excuses, play the victim, or redirect attention back onto you. If confronted directly, they may become angry, emotional, defensive, or accuse you of causing the problem. Their goal is often not healthy resolution or personal growth. Their goal is maintaining control. One of the most important things you can do is pay attention to your emotional state around certain people. Do you consistently feel emotionally exhausted after speaking with them? Do you feel anxious, guilty, confused, or emotionally small? Do your words constantly get twisted against you? Do you feel like you must carefully walk on eggshells to avoid conflict? These are not healthy communication patterns. They are often signs of emotional manipulation. Also pay attention to common control behaviors, such as constantly interrupting or dominating conversations, ignoring your personal boundaries, or repeatedly testing your limits, using silence, distance, or emotional withdrawal as punishment, turning other people against you through gossip, lies, or subtle manipulation. These behaviors are not about healthy communication. They are about psychological control and emotional power. But here is the important truth. Manipulators become strongest when self-trust becomes weak. The more deeply you trust your instincts, respect your emotions, maintain clear boundaries, and value your own reality, the less influence manipulators have over you. To protect yourself, start by clearly naming unhealthy behavior instead of excusing or rationalizing it. Say to yourself, "This behavior is manipulative. This is emotional control. This does not feel emotionally healthy." Set boundaries early and clearly. "I'm not comfortable with that. That's not how I remember the situation. I will not continue this conversation if I'm being disrespected." You do not owe manipulators unlimited access to your time, energy, attention, or emotional peace. Avoid getting trapped in endless arguments trying to prove your reality. Emotionally manipulative people often want confusion, not clarity. Your calm understanding of the truth is enough. Surround yourself with emotionally grounded people who help you think clearly, stay balanced, and trust your own perception. The strongest defense against manipulation is a combination of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and self-worth. When you trust yourself deeply, manipulators lose the ability to distort your reality. When your values are strong, their tactics lose power. And when you recognize manipulation patterns early, emotional control becomes much harder for them to maintain. Remember, the goal is not to become cold, suspicious, or emotionally closed off. The goal is to become discerning. You can still remain kind, compassionate, emotionally open, and understanding without becoming naive. You can recognize unhealthy behavior, sense hidden motives, and choose to walk away when necessary. That is not cruelty. It is wisdom, self-respect, and emotional protection. That's wisdom. Chapter 12. Body clusters. The power of patterns, not just individual signals. Most people misunderstand body language because they analyze one gesture at a time. They notice crossed arms and instantly assume a person is defensive. They see a smile and immediately think someone is happy. But real body language doesn't work that way. A single gesture rarely means much on its own unless you understand the full body cluster, a group of signals that appear together and support the same emotional message. To truly read people accurately, you must learn to recognize patterns instead of focusing on isolated behaviors. A body cluster is a collection of non-verbal cues that, when combined, reveal a consistent emotional or psychological state. Think of it like music. One note alone says very little, but several notes played together create harmony and meaning. In the same way, posture, gestures, facial expressions, movement, and tone all work together to reveal what someone is genuinely feeling. When these signals match each other, the message becomes clear. But when they conflict, there is usually something hidden beneath the surface. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine someone sitting with their arms crossed, while also smiling warmly, leaning slightly toward you, and maintaining steady eye contact. Does that automatically mean they are closed off? Most likely not. In this situation, the crossed arms may simply be a comfortable resting position. Now picture the same crossed arms combined with leaning away, avoiding eye contact, and feet pointed toward the exit. Suddenly, the meaning changes completely. That becomes a defensive body cluster. Understanding clusters helps you avoid false assumptions and allows you to judge situations with far greater accuracy and confidence. Here are some of the most common body language clusters and what they usually reveal. Cluster: openness and engagement, uncrossed arms and legs, leaning slightly forward, relaxed shoulders, head tilted gently to one side, open palms or visible wrists, steady and natural eye contact. Meaning: this cluster signals openness, trust, comfort, and genuine interest. The person feels emotionally and psychologically available for connection or conversation. Cluster: defensiveness or withdrawal, crossed arms or crossed legs, leaning backward or turning the body away, limited or inconsistent eye contact, tightly pressed lips, tense facial expressions, slightly raised shoulders. Meaning: this cluster often suggests discomfort, emotional distance, criticism, or a need for protection. The person may feel unsafe, guarded, or unwilling to fully open up. Cluster: dominance and authority, standing tall with feet shoulder-width apart, hands placed on the hips or behind the back, chin is slightly raised, slow and controlled movements, strong, steady eye contact, invading personal space without hesitation. Meaning: This cluster reflects confidence, control, authority, and sometimes aggression. It is commonly seen in leaders, managers, or individuals trying to establish higher social status. Cluster: nervousness and deception. Fidgeting with hands, hair, or nearby objects. Frequent touching of the face, neck, or mouth. Sudden changes in breathing patterns. Avoiding eye contact or forcing unnatural eye contact. Gestures that don't match spoken words. Frequent swallowing or throat clearing. Meaning: these behaviors may point to anxiety. Nervous behavior does not automatically mean someone is lying. It can also come from fear, insecurity, or social anxiety. Cluster: attraction and affection. Mirroring another person's posture or speaking style. Feet and torso directed toward the person. Dilated pupils. Frequent smiling and laughing. Adjusting hair or clothing. Gentle touches on the arm, hand, or back. Meaning: these signals often reveal warmth, emotional connection, romantic interest, or strong affection. The human body naturally moves toward the people it feels drawn to. Cluster: boredom or disinterest. Looking around the room repeatedly, tapping fingers or feet impatiently, checking a phone or watch often, slouched or collapsed posture, leaning away from the speaker, a blank, tired, or emotionally flat facial expression. Meaning: this cluster usually signals mental disengagement. The person may still be physically present, but their attention and interest have already drifted somewhere else. In many ways, their body has already exited the interaction before they actually leave. Cluster: stress or inner conflict. Rubbing the forehead, temples, or eyes. Rapid blinking or restless eye movement. Tight, hunched shoulders. Clenched jaw or grinding teeth. Irregular breathing patterns. Forced smiles or unnatural laughter. Meaning: these signs often reveal emotional pressure, mental exhaustion, or internal conflict. The body naturally searches for ways to release tension and regain comfort when the mind feels overwhelmed. When reading body clusters, always remember these 3 important principles. First, context changes everything. A gesture only gains meaning through the situation around it. Crossed arms may signal defensiveness in one moment, but simple comfort or habit in another. Always pay attention to the environment, emotional atmosphere, and relationship between the people involved. Second, baseline behavior matters. Some people naturally avoid eye contact. Others constantly tap their fingers or move restlessly while speaking. That alone is not necessarily a warning sign. What truly matters is... Third, watch for synchronization. Honest and emotionally aligned people usually move in harmony. Their tone, words, facial expressions, and gestures support each other naturally. But guarded or deceptive individuals often display mismatched signals. They may smile while speaking negatively, nod while saying no, or pause unnaturally before answering simple questions. The most skilled people readers are not the fastest to judge. They are the most patient observers. Instead of jumping to conclusions, they quietly collect signals over time, allowing patterns to reveal the deeper truth naturally. Understanding body clusters gives you the ability to recognize emotions beneath spoken words. It helps you sense discomfort before it is expressed, notice emotional distance early, and understand when someone is open to deeper connection. At the same time, it also increases awareness of your own nonverbal behavior. You begin noticing the signals you send when you feel anxious, disconnected, stressed, or genuinely happy. That self-awareness improves communication, reduces misunderstandings, and strengthens human connection. In the end, reading people is not about memorizing random gestures. It's about recognizing harmony and conflict within the full orchestra of human behavior. It's about hearing the silent language of emotion, movement, energy, and intention. Chapter 13. Building Trust Through Observation. From reading people to truly connecting with them. Reading people is not only useful in negotiation rooms, interviews, or high-pressure situations. At its deepest level, it becomes a doorway to meaningful human connection. When people feel truly understood, they notice it immediately. They sense when someone sees beyond the surface. And from that feeling, something powerful begins to grow. Trust. Trust is rarely built through big words or dramatic gestures. It develops quietly over time, through attention, consistency, emotional awareness, and genuine presence. When the science of reading people is combined with empathy, it transforms into the art of making others feel safe, understood, and respected. So how do you turn observation into real trust? The first step is developing non-judgmental awareness. The moment people feel they are being analyzed, criticized, or judged, they begin to close themselves emotionally. But when they feel observed with kindness, openness, and sincerity, they naturally relax and open up. Most people are not searching for someone to fix them. They are searching for someone who truly understands them, someone who can sit with their confusion, fears, insecurities, and imperfections without making them feel small. Your role is not to control people or diagnose every behavior. Your role is to become a clear mirror, one that reflects people honestly without distortion or judgment. When people feel emotionally safe around you, trust begins to form naturally. The next step is emotional attunement. Emotional attunement is the ability to adjust your energy to meet people where they emotionally are. If someone is feeling sad, you don't overwhelm them with forced positivity. If they are excited and full of energy, you don't drain the moment with cold seriousness. Instead, you naturally match their emotional rhythm, not to copy them, but to respect their emotions. This quiet form of alignment is incredibly powerful. People may not consciously notice it, but they feel it deeply. And almost instantly, it begins creating trust. Trust also grows through consistent observation. When people realize you remember small details about them, what they shared, how they felt, what matters to them, they begin to feel valued. They feel recognized, held within your attention. And attention, when genuine, is one of the purest forms of care. Imagine a coworker once told you they were nervous about speaking in front of a crowd. Weeks later, you casually ask, "How did your presentation go?" That simple moment quietly communicates something powerful. I remembered you. I listened. You matter to me. Moments like these create bonds much deeper than ordinary conversation ever can. Another powerful way to build trust through observation is by responding to what remains unspoken. Sometimes a person says, "I'm fine," while their body clearly tells a different story. Their shoulders are tense, their voice feels heavy, their eyes seem distant. In moments like this, gently saying something like, "Are you sure? You seem a little off today," can open an emotional door. When you carefully acknowledge what someone is trying to hide, without pressure or judgment, you give them permission to lower their mask. But timing is extremely important. People rarely open up fully in crowded rooms or public settings. Real honesty usually appears in quiet, safe moments. After the meeting, during a walk, sitting in the car, late at night when defenses are weaker and emotional walls begin to soften. Observation creates trust most effectively in these quieter spaces. There is also deep trust in patience. Skilled people readers do not rush others to reveal themselves. They don't pressure, force, or aggressively analyze. Instead, they watch carefully, stay patient, and allow truth to unfold naturally over time. When people sense that you are not trying to label, expose, or control them, they relax. And relaxed people reveal far more than pressured people ever will. Trust also strengthens when you allow yourself to be vulnerable first. When you share something honest about yourself, something real and human rather than polished or perfect, you silently give others permission to do the same. It creates emotional safety. People naturally open up to those who are willing to open up first. At the same time, building trust does not mean blindly agreeing with everything someone says or does. Sometimes trust grows through gentle honesty, through respectfully questioning a harmful pattern, through confronting a lie with care instead of cruelty, through refusing to support self-deception while still protecting the person's dignity. When done with empathy and respect, this doesn't weaken trust, it deepens it. If you can read people accurately but lack compassion, you become cold and emotionally distant. But if you care deeply without understanding people clearly, you become vulnerable to manipulation and deception. The real power comes when perception and compassion work together. That combination makes your presence feel calming, grounding, and safe. To become someone who truly connects with others, ask yourself these questions every day. Did I make someone feel genuinely understood today? Did I notice something others ignored? Did I reflect someone's emotions without judging them? Did I use my awareness to understand instead of control? Trust is rarely built through dramatic moments. It's built through small acts repeated consistently. A moment of eye contact held slightly longer. Remembering someone's name. Asking thoughtful follow-up questions. Hearing the silence hidden behind their words. Quietly saying, "I noticed." These small moments of emotional awareness become the foundation of deep human connection. When you truly master the science of reading people, you do not become manipulative. You become magnetic. People naturally feel drawn toward you because they feel emotionally safe in your presence. They may not even fully understand why, but around you they feel lighter, calmer, freer, and more like themselves. That's because you are doing something very few people truly do. You are paying real attention. And in a world overflowing with noise, distraction, and surface-level conversations, the person who listens deeply, quietly, and sincerely will always become the person others trust most. Chapter 14. The Art of Calibration. Adjusting your approach. Based on what you observe, reading people is only one part of the skill. The real power comes from knowing what to do with the information you notice. That is where calibration begins. Calibration is the ability to adjust your words, behavior, tone, timing, and energy according to the signals another person is giving you. It means responding with awareness instead of reacting automatically. When done well, calibration builds trust, reduces conflict, strengthens. Think of it like this. Reading people gives you information. Calibration tells you how to respond to that information. A skilled communicator doesn't simply notice that someone feels emotionally closed off. They soften their tone, slow down their approach, or gently change the direction of the conversation. A strong leader doesn't push harder when they sense resistance. Instead, they pause, become curious, ask questions, and approach the situation from another angle. Calibration is often the difference between simply being correct and actually being effective. Everything starts with presence. To calibrate successfully, you must remain mentally and emotionally present in the moment. You cannot stay trapped inside your own thoughts, planning your next sentence while ignoring the emotional atmosphere around you. You need to feel the room. Notice subtle reactions as they happen, and adjust in real time. A quick frown, a delayed nod, a slight shift backward, a change in breathing or tone. These tiny signals tell you when it's time to slow down, redirect, or change your approach. If you ignore them, you risk forcing the conversation forward and emotionally bulldozing the other person. The best calibrators speak less and observe more. They watch carefully before they respond. Pay attention to the feedback loop. Every word you speak and every action you take creates a reaction. Watch the other person closely. Are they leaning closer or creating distance? Do their expressions soften or tighten? Are they becoming warmer or emotionally colder? Do they seem engaged, uncomfortable, curious, or withdrawn? These reactions tell you whether your approach is helping or harming the connection. If a joke falls flat, adjust. If advice creates defensiveness, change direction. If curiosity increases, explore deeper. Calibration is not manipulation. It is an adaptation. It reflects emotional intelligence, awareness, flexibility, and respect for another person's emotional experience. Calibrate your energy. One of the fastest ways to create either connection or discomfort is through an energy mismatch. If someone is calm, quiet, and reflective while you enter loudly and aggressively, they will likely shut down emotionally. If someone is excited and passionate while you respond with low energy and monotone, the goal is not imitation. The goal is alignment. Match their emotional intensity naturally. Raise or lower your energy to create comfort and familiarity. Once trust and rapport are established, you can slowly guide the emotional energy toward a different direction if needed. Calibrate your questions. Good observers know what questions to ask. Great calibrators know the right moment and emotional tone for asking them. If someone feels tense or emotionally fragile, avoid aggressive or confrontational questions. Use gentle curiosity instead. What's been on your mind lately? You seem a little distracted today. Want to talk about it? If someone appears guarded or emotionally distant, don't immediately push for deeply personal information. Build emotional safety first. But when someone feels open and emotionally available, you can invite deeper reflection with questions like, what did that experience teach you? How did that situation really make you feel? Remember, the emotional tone behind your question matters more than the actual words. A supportive tone creates openness. An interrogating tone creates resistance. Calibrate your silence. Silence is one of the most powerful communication tools you have. During emotional or vulnerable moments, speaking too quickly can interrupt emotional honesty. A calm pause gives people time to think, process emotions, and continue opening up naturally. If someone shares something painful or deeply personal, don't rush to fill the silence with advice or opinions. Simply stay present. Let them feel that you are fully there with them. Sometimes the strongest form of calibration is saying nothing at all and simply holding emotional space. Calibrate according to roles and social dynamics. Your communication style should also adjust based on the situation and the relationship. You would not speak to a nervous intern the same way you would speak to a confident CEO. You would not challenge a close friend the same way you challenge a client or stranger. Understanding someone's role, status, personality, and self-perception allows you to communicate in a way that feels natural, respectful, and effective. High-status individuals often respond best to clear, direct, and concise communication. Sensitive people, on the other hand, tend to need warmth, reassurance, and emotional validation. Analytical thinkers prefer logic, structure, and well-organized reasoning. Emotional personalities usually want to feel understood first, before any solutions are offered. The key is simple. Understand your audience, then adjust your approach accordingly. Calibrate in conflict. In moments of conflict, calibration becomes essential for control and resolution. When someone is angry, you do not raise your voice to match theirs. You lower yours. When they accuse, you don't immediately defend yourself. You reflect and respond calmly. When they shut down emotionally, you don't push harder. You slow down and soften your approach. The objective is not to win the argument. The goal is to reduce tension and create understanding. Emotionally intelligent calibrators don't diffuse situations by being passive. They do it by staying grounded, steady, and responsive under pressure. Calibrate your boundaries. Calibration is not about adjusting endlessly to others. It also includes knowing when not to adjust at all. Some people will try to drag you into their emotional chaos, pressure you into over-explaining, or dominate your time and attention. In these situations, the strongest form of calibration is clear, calm boundaries. I hear you, but I'm not available right now. Let's continue this when we've both had time to think. I'm not comfortable with that approach. You do not need to absorb someone else's chaos in order to acknowledge their feelings. Real calibration includes protecting your own emotional space. Calibration as influence. When practiced with integrity, calibration becomes a powerful form of influence. You guide conversations smoothly, reduce tension naturally, strengthen connection, and make people feel deeply understood without forcing outcomes, pretending, or controlling them. You become flexible in approach, but firm in values. A kind of social adaptability rooted in emotional strength and inner stability. In emotionally intense or important moments, people rarely remember your exact words. They remember how you made them feel. When you can accurately read their signals and adjust your behavior with awareness, they begin to feel safer around you than they do with most people. That sense of safety builds a level of trust. In a world focused on speaking louder, winning arguments, and forcing outcomes, calibration is the quiet skill of moving with emotional intelligence instead of resistance. It does not push. It does not dominate. It aligns, adjusts, and connects with precision. It removes emotional blindness. It removes social misreading, and it replaces them with awareness, timing, and understanding. You become someone people feel heard by, safe with, and naturally drawn to. Chapter 15. The Master Reader. Becoming a mirror, not a mask. By this point, one truth becomes clear. Reading people is not about control. It is about connection. It is not about gaining an advantage over others. It is about understanding them more deeply and meeting them where they truly are. When you become a master reader of people, you do not manipulate perception. You illuminate reality. You begin to notice what others miss. The tension behind a smile, the story hidden in silence, the strength buried inside the struggle. And that level of perception makes your presence unforgettable. Master readers do not rely on tricks or surface-level techniques. They rely on awareness, presence, and genuine human understanding. They move through life with quiet clarity, tuned into more than just spoken words. They see people not as labels, roles, or categories, but as complex, emotional, layered human beings. Because of this, they form connections that others cannot easily replicate. So what does it take to reach this level? It begins with humility. The deeper you observe people, the more you realize how much exists beneath the surface. The more you listen, the less you feel the need to speak. Master readers do not constantly announce what they notice. Instead, they reflect it through their behavior, their responses, and the way others feel in their presence. They develop a quiet, unshakable sense of inner calm. Their emotions do not spill over and distort their perception. Instead, they learn to pause, breathe, and observe before reacting. They can sense someone's anger without taking it into themselves. They can recognize deception without becoming cynical. They can sit with another person's pain without feeling the need to immediately fix it. A master reader has emotional boundaries. They can be present in someone's emotional chaos without losing their own inner balance. They offer space, not quick solutions. They ask thoughtful questions. They listen for what is not being said out loud, and they trust their instincts because those instincts have been refined, tested, and aligned with reality over time. They recognize that every person is a living story, shaped by moments, memories, fears, and hopes. Their purpose is not to solve people as if they were puzzles, but to witness them without judgment or hidden agenda. And that kind of witnessing is rare. Most people move through life feeling unseen. When someone truly sees them, it creates a quiet form of healing they didn't even realize they needed. Master readers look beyond behavior. They understand that rudeness often hides insecurity, that perfectionism often hides a fear of not being enough, that anger often protects deeper grief, and that silence is not emptiness. It is often emotional overload. They do not simply react to what people do. They respond to what those behaviors are protecting. They also understand timing, when to speak and when to remain silent. Sometimes the most powerful response is a simple nod, a calm presence, a quiet reflection of understanding. They are not driven by ego. They do not feel the need to prove what they see, because over time, they learn something important. When you truly understand people, your presence communicates more than your explanations ever could. A master reader is also deeply self-aware. They recognize that their own experiences, biases, and emotional wounds can influence how they interpret. So they do the inner work. They question their assumptions. They examine their reactions. They continuously refine their inner clarity so their perception becomes less distorted and more accurate. And above all, they remain lifelong students of human nature. Every person becomes a new chapter, a new pattern, a new variation of the human experience. They stay curious. They stay humble. They stay open. They never assume they have fully understood someone because they know people are not equations to be solved. They are oceans, constantly shifting, endlessly deep, and never fully visible all at once. To become a master reader, practice this daily. Be fully present in every interaction, even the smallest ones. Notice not just what people say, but how they say it. Listen without rushing to respond. Reflect on your own emotional reactions and what they might reveal. Trust your intuition, but always test it with patience and curiosity. And most importantly, treat every person as worthy of genuine attention and respect. Because here is the real truth. The greatest readers of people are not those who analyze the most. They are the ones who make others feel truly seen, not judged, not labeled, but deeply understood. And when you become that kind of person, something subtle but powerful happens. You don't just read people. You help them see themselves more clearly. You become the mirror in which others recognize their own truth, the quiet presence that steadies their emotions. The rare person who listens when the world is too loud, that is the true gift of understanding people. And that is the impact you leave behind. Not through what you say,